content to the table that's valuable and something that's relevant to what I've been working on during the week. So it's fresh on my brain. And this week, we're going to be talking about wholesaling. So we have, we've got an entire wholesaling class for you that's in our Flippin' Sexy Real Estate Education channel, which can be found on YouTube. It's a 4 or 5 hour class. So make sure that you go check that out. It's definitely going to be a lot more in depth than the call today, but I am excited to jump in and share some of that stuff with you. So we're going to dive in deep today and then open it up for questions and answers towards the end. Of course, because of the small numbers that we have on this call, I think we can keep it to kind of an intimate conversation. So if you have questions or comments as we're going through the content, feel free to come off mute and let's have a conversation. Let's go ahead and dive in. So I want to start with just kind of my experience this week. So a big part of what I do in my real estate business. So a lot of you have heard me say before, my primary strategy is rentals. That's my long-term goal. That's my retirement play, right? Is I want to just build up a portfolio of as many rentals as I possibly can. But, doing that one by one without any real capital to be able to push, velocity in acquiring rentals is tough. And I realized this when I first started doing real estate about 9 years ago. It's a slow go if you don't have something supporting it. So that's when I decided to get into the short-term real estate game, which is flips and wholesales. Now, I have a very specific criteria for what I will take on as a flip. Right? It's got to have a certain margin in it. I have to be able to make a certain profit. I got to be able to get it done within a certain budget. It's got to fit my template. And by doing that, I can do more flips. If I'm not taking on something that's totally outside of my wheelhouse, that's going to suck all my time, if I'm taking on stuff that I can just cookie cutter, I'm going to be able to do way more of them because I've systematized the process, which is going to provide me with more profit, which means more money that I can go dump into rental properties. And to dive a little bit deeper into that concept, for those of you who have read Mindset to Millionaire, you understand the difference between what the first dollar and the second dollar is. A first dollar activity is something that you do once that pays you once, right? A fix and flip's a perfect example of that. I do a fix and flip, it pays me once. But you know what? That house will never pay me again. I've got to go do another fix and flip to get paid again. That's a first dollar activity. A job is a first dollar activity. You go work an hour, you'll get paid for that hour. But if you want to get paid more, you've got to go work another hour. Whereas a rental property is what I call a second dollar activity or a second dollar asset. It's a decision that you'll make once that will pay you over and over and over. So it's the massive income versus the passive income. I don't want to be managing fix and flips when I'm 90 years old. That's just not something I'm excited about, or even 60 years old. I'm not excited about that idea. So that's why I'm out doing the hard work right now, doing those first dollar activities to build up that massive income so that I can go buy those second dollar activities that will just pay me on an ongoing basis. So my goal in my business is I try not to use, for my personal lifestyle, I try not to use any of the money that's a first dollar activity. Not perfect at it. I don't think anybody can be perfect at anything. But my goal is to take that and then go buy rental properties with that capital. Let's say I make 40 grand on a flip. I'll take that 40 grand. I'll go buy a rental property, might be my down payment on that rental property, but then that increases my monthly cash flow. So I can increase my lifestyle by that monthly cash flow. Now, here's the thing. I talk about how in my flip system, I try to keep it cookie cutter. I try to keep it as systematized as possible, so I'm not spending unnecessary amounts of time on one particular flip. What do I do with the rest of those properties that don't fit that cookie cutter? If I'm out generating leads, right?
Wholesale.
I'm out knocking doors. Wholesale, Eugene called it. Yeah, I'm going to wholesale it. If I'm out generating leads, if I'm out knocking doors, or I'm calling on the NOD list, or I'm talking to people in foreclosure or divorce, or I'm out, looking at meth houses or whatever the case might be, generating property leads, especially in the market climate that we're in right now, where it's a seller's market, is one of the most difficult, most time consuming, and most frustrating parts of real estate investing. It's hard with that hard work. I don't want to throw it away just because it may not fit my exact mold. So what do I do with it? Well, Eugene called it, I wholesale it, right? So wholesaling is where we're not selling property. When we're talking about wholesaling, we're not selling a house. What we're selling is a contract. Here's the thing about contracts. When you have a house under contract, which means you've submitted an offer to the seller, they've accepted your offer, you're now in a phase that's referred to as under contract on that property. there's a few things that go along with that. Being under contract on a property means that seller cannot sell that property out from under you, right? You have a certain period during that under contract phase where you can go in and do your due diligence, make sure that you understand what you're buying, and then either renegotiate or cancel that contract if it doesn't meet your criteria, or you can close on that deal and move forward and flip it or rent it or whatever the case might be. But when we're under contract, something you can do is find, if it doesn't fit your mold, then you can find somebody who is going to want to flip that property or who is going to want to turn it into a rental, and you can sell them that contract and then they can execute the contract. When you're a buyer and you have a property under contract and you have the exclusive rights to buy that property, you can sell those rights to someone else. That's what we refer to as wholesaling. So we're actually selling the contract itself. Now, I did one of those this week, and I actually encountered a situation that I've only encountered a handful of times, and I wanted to bring it up because it does happen. It doesn't happen all that often, but it does happen, and I want you guys to know exactly how to handle it when it does happen. So we went out and looked at this property, this lead that had crossed my desk, took Steve, my contractor, out to look at it. And we tried coming at it from all different angles, but it just wouldn't fit our mold. We wanted to do it. We need another property right now, but it just wasn't going to be something that was going to make myself and my equity partners money. So rather than canceling the contract, the first thing I did was I started getting on the phone with every one of my students and every one of my investing peers who I knew was looking for a fix and flip at the time. Well, it didn't take me very long. The first phone call I made, the person was interested in the property and wanted to buy it. So what we did was I took that contract, I wholesaled it to this individual named Jana, right? And Jana gave me a wholesale fee of $10,000. And once she paid her wholesale fee, I went ahead and wrote up an addendum to the seller, letting them know, hey, the buyer, instead of being me, the buyer's going to be Jana. Well, the buyer came back and they said, hey, this seems weird. They had an agent, right? And I think the agent got freaked out by it. And they're like, we're not going to do this. This is weird. I don't know what you're trying to pull here, but they freaked out at the idea of me assigning the contract. Well, Jan had already paid me for it, right? So I got a couple of options here. And a lesser educated investor probably would have been like, I'm sorry, Jana, here's your money back, cancel the contract, right? But here's the thing, there are some workarounds that we can use. Most REPCs, most real estate purchase contracts that are approved by state board of realtors, real estate departments are very, very similar in the way that they're written. And in the state of Utah, there is a section of that REPC, it's section 19, that says if I'm going to transfer the rights of the contract to someone, not me, or the companies that I own, I have to get a signature from the seller. So that was the case. I had to get a signature from the seller. But that same paragraph also says, I don't need written permission from the seller if I'm going to transfer it into a company that I own. So what do you think we did? Let's get creative here. I want to, now understanding that, I need written permission from the seller, and I tried to, and they said no. But that same paragraph also said, I can transfer the ownership of that contract into any entity that I own, a trust, an LLC. I still want to make this deal happen with Jana. What did I do? Eugene, I saw you come off mute. You have an idea?
I think we might have created a new LLC and quit deeded into that. And so you can sell the rights of the LLC to the new, your prospective purchaser.
Yeah, you nailed it, man. So
good.
If I can transfer it, and well done, Eugene. I can tell you've been watching your classes. Let me dive a little bit deeper into what Eugene said here, because he nailed it. That's exactly the way that we handled this. I started a new LLC, and because I can transfer ownership of that contract into an LLC that I own, I went ahead and did that. I didn't need written permission from the seller to do that. So started the LLC, had Cody Backus, who's been on this call, he's my attorney, started an LLC for me. I went ahead and did a permissible transfer into that LLC. And now the LLC is the legal buyer of that property on the contract. Then at that point, what I did is I sold the LLC to Jana for $10,000. Rather than selling the contract, instead, I kept the contract in the company and I just sold the company to Jana for 10 grand. Now Jana owns the company, but the contract stays, and I don't have to transfer the contract to Jana. It stays in the LLC. So we're right in the process right now of doing all the paperwork to transfer that LLC over to Jana, and she's going to go ahead and close on that property. As the new owner of that LLC, she's going to close on that property on the 18th of March. We were able to, because of knowledge, we were actually able to use the law to our favor. You see, the law, as it's written, kind of put up a roadblock for us with the seller not wanting to transfer the buyership of the contract, but we used it to our advantage. The way that the contract's written, it says I can transfer it into these companies. I transferred it into a company I own, sold the company itself to Jana, and she's going to execute it. So very clever way to assign contracts. If you can do the same thing with trusts. You can start a trust. Now, the thing that I love about trusts is you don't need EIN numbers, right? There's no EIN number needed. The benefit there, EIN, you're going to have to do, taxes at the end of the year. You're going to have to include that new LLC in your taxes. That can be a headache, especially for someone like me who's got way too many entities already for all the different real estate stuff that I do. So if you don't want to go through the headache of having to do the taxes on that LLC that you only owned for 5 minutes, you can do the same thing with a trust. Trust will provide you with a lot of the same benefit in this scenario, but you can bypass all the tax headache by doing it through a trust. So you can put it in a trust, you can move it over. Now, why did I choose an LLC instead of a trust? Well, Jana was actually in the process of setting up an LLC so that she was using Cody because she's one of my students. She was in the process of setting up an LLC that she was going to run that flip out of. So I said, you know what? You're paying for this LLC anyway. Let's set it up in my name first, and then we'll have Cody do a membership addendum that just transfers all the interest to you. And there you go. Makes it easy. It's less cost. It's less headache. That's why we chose to do the LLC that way. So let's dive into this. What questions? So as we're talking about wholesaling here, what questions do you guys have about what we did in that process, or wholesaling in general? How we can make this kind of money off of assignment wholesale. Maybe you've got questions about the legalities of wholesaling in your state. I know that 3 or 4 years, a lot of states have cracked down on the idea of wholesaling and have only given you this little narrow pathway that you can do wholesaling legally in. Let's talk about it. What questions do you guys have around that? And how can we dive deeper into the concept of legally wholesaling here?
So a question I have is, what strategies did you look at before you decided to wholesale this property to Jana?
Good. That's a really good question, Tyson. Thank you. What strategies did we look at before we decided to wholesale it? Well, obviously we were looking, we always look at our 2 main strategies, which is flip and rental, right? Actually in reverse order, rental first, then flip. Usually I will default to flip if they're not offering seller financing. We always ask that question. We always ask the seller, are you open to seller financing? If they say yes, I'm analyzing as a rental. If they say no, I'm analyzing as a flip. And the reason is because I'm going to bring a lot of money and credit to the table on a flip. I don't necessarily want to do that on a rental. By tying up your own money and your own credit long-term in a rental, you're not going to make a very high rate of return, right? That's why we talk about and we teach these creative strategies to acquiring rental properties where, we're using other people's money, we're using other people's mortgages. We want to tie as few of our resources up as possible because that's just going to allow us to do more and more rental properties. Usually immediately when they tell me that they're not interested in seller financing, which was the case on this one, we defaulted to flip. So now we're running our quick analysis on this property. I'm getting Steve in there. The quick analysis worked, by the way. It was at a certain budget point. So we went ahead and made the offer based on the quick analysis, pretty much following the deal spotter system to the letter on this deal, right? If you're not familiar with the deal spotter system, you're going to want to pull up that class. It is off-market deals on tap. It is on our Flippin' Sexy Real Estate Education channel. So let me go ahead and share that in the chat here. Our deal spotter system is taught. That is the streamlined system of analyzing, making offers, and deciding whether or not to go ahead and do a deal. By the time we made an offer on it and they accepted it, I don't remember the exact purchase price off the top of my head. We had gotten Steve in there during our long analysis process. Funky thing about this property had 3 bedrooms, but it was a small house. So it had 3 bedrooms, but the problem was it was built back in the 20s when it was okay to have to go through a bedroom to get to a bedroom. There wasn't a hallway connecting all 3 of the bedrooms. You could only individually enter 2 bedrooms, and then to get to the 3rd bedroom, you had to cross through one of the bedrooms. That is not to code, and that is something we'd have to change. The problem was the layout of the house didn't allow us to put a hallway anywhere, didn't allow us for moving stuff around to be able to fit 3 bedrooms. And that's what we had run our ARV on in our quick analysis was a 3-bedroom house, not a 2-bedroom house, right? So we'd have to turn around to be compliant. We'd have to sell this thing as a 2-bedroom house. That's a much lower price that we didn't catch first time around. And it ended up not working for us, right? Because our construction, our template, what we put into it is just too much. Well, Jana had a little bit different angle. Jana's husband is a licensed contractor. He'd be managing it. So that immediately eliminated some of the cost of doing that project for Jana versus me doing the project. I don't want to be there managing subcontractors, right? So that put a little bit margin back in Jana's pocket. She was able to do it where I wasn't. So after getting through our long analysis, we finally decided that it wasn't going to work for us. And then at that point, pick up where we started, we made the decision, hey, let's try to wholesale this before we cancel the contract. That's where Jana came into the picture. Now, Charlotte asked, how much did Cody charge for the LLC setup? This is a really good question. I want to say that Cody charges $700 for a new LLC. Now, it's a lot cheaper for what he refers to as a disposable LLC, which is what I would use in a case like this. You don't need a robust operating agreement for a disposable LLC, something that I'm going to use just for, putting the contract in it, selling it off to another person, and then they throw it away, right? They dissolve the LLC. What really costs money when you're having an attorney set up an LLC for you is the most important component, the part that actually is what limits your liability. It's not just owning the entity, it's actually the operating agreement that protects you in that LLC. That's what costs the most money. So to set up something for Jana where she was going to be able to operate out of that entity once I transferred it over to her was about $700. Obviously, Jana was going to pay for that anyway, so Jana paid for that. The only thing I had to pay for was there was a $250 extra fee to write up the membership agreement or the membership transfer agreement with the basically the language that transfers ownership of the LLC from me to Jana. All in all, to do what we wanted to do and to meet Jana's goals and to meet our joint goals and my goals, it ended up being $950, of which I paid $250. I love when we get to deep dive into stuff and talk about specific scenarios because this stuff comes up, right? And it's not always something that educators and coaches like myself remember to put into the actual classes, right? We're going to talk about the straightforward, here's how you do a straightforward wholesale, right? Transaction from start to finish. But then you get into a real estate transaction and people are crazy. They throw all sorts of obstacles in your way. And how do you resolve those? Well, that's how you get around in an assignment wholesale. That's how you get around seller not being able to work with you or not being willing to work with you, transferring that contract.
Okay, we're getting ready to rent out these 2 houses, but they're both in Michael's name personally.
Mm-hmm.
That's my son. And can you put that into a corporation or LLC or, because it's a loan with the bank. They're both VA loans. We're trying to figure out ways to get around this. We're thinking of selling one to our partner. That way we pull out all the cash because we were going to refinance it, but we can't find anybody to do a HELOC that's in the area we're in is just not going to happen. So I've checked everywhere, but I figured another way would be to just sell it to our partner at whatever top dollar we can get for it and keep it as a rental. Because even at top dollar, it's still going to have a cash flow. Out here, we're still where, you can buy a home and still have a cash flow even at retail. But I just don't know, how would we do the other house? How do you transfer the liability out of his name since it's technically in his name? Because the mortgage has a clause in it that if it's transferred, I forget what it's called, but it's a due on
sale.
Due on sale. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a couple of things. You're in the Carolinas, right?
Yeah.
If I remember right. Okay. So I don't know whether your state is a title state or not. Do you use title companies or do you use real estate attorneys to do transactions? Attorneys. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to want to just work through an attorney. It's actually way easier than you think. It's a warranty deed or a quitclaim deed into the entity that you want. Now, what about the due on sale clause? Well, you know what? Mortgage companies, if you actually read your mortgage contract, they can foreclose on you if you let your grass get too long. If you go too long without painting the house, if you go too long without shoveling the sidewalk, they way overbuild these contracts to give them way more rights than they're probably going to act on, just to protect the bank in case you're doing something funky and they're like, whoa, wait a second. But you know what? It's really not that funky for you to be like, you know what? I moved it into an entity that I own. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I'm paying them. And let me tell you the secret to not triggering those due on sale clauses. Pay your bills. If you keep making the mortgage payment, they're not going to knock on your door. I promise you, right? But as soon as you start getting behind and you become a pain in their butt, then they're going to look at it and say, well, we built in this thing. We can use that to foreclose on her. And they're not really foreclosing on you because you transferred it. They're just using that because that was what they found in the contract that they could use. They're really foreclosing on you because you're a pain in their butt and they're not paying your bill. So by simply transferring that into that entity, especially an entity that Michael has ownership in, I'm not guaranteeing you it won't trigger the due on sale clause, but I have never seen it happen for myself or for any of my students. And that's very common. That's a very common thing that we do.
Yeah, my first house I bought, I actually did an AITD, an all-inclusive trust deed in California. My escrow officer told me all about it, and I said, "Oh, I didn't know I could do that." Okay, let me go see if I can find one. And I did. I found somebody that was trying to lease their property, but I noticed that it had been listed before. So I thought, oh, they really want to sell, but I guess they're giving up and now they want to lease. So I walked in the door with $2,500 and walked out with 80,000.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have much of a problem. Just make sure you use an attorney to do it. You don't want to try to do that stuff on your own.
Right.
As real estate investors, remember we talk about aces in their places. We are not attorneys. We're investors, right? And investors don't do attorney work. Attorneys do attorney work. So let the attorneys do what they do best. Make sure that you use a real estate attorney to make sure that it's recorded correctly and all that stuff, because that's just, if it's all done right, that's just fewer weird things for the bank to get scared by. Now, as far as, you said you have 2 properties. I think that covers the one that your partner's not involved in. You're going to have to check into the legality of selling, actually going through the selling process. Most states don't want to see the previous owner involved or have interest in the property once it goes through a sale. If you're still going to be partners on that, selling it to your partner and then kind of coming in on the back end, you can actually be accused of, can't remember the official term, but it's people used to do it to create false comps. They'd buy a house down the street and then they'd sell it to their buddy at a way inflated price so that it would jump the prices up so they could sell this house next door for that price and then go and sell this house for that price. And they're manipulating the market, right? So they don't, for that reason, they don't want to see you have interest after you've gone through a sale. And I'm sure if not all 50 states, most of them are going to have that condition. So the right way to do it, now consult your attorney, but in my mind, the right way to do that is just, instead of selling it to your partner, just deed it into the LLC that you want, bring your partner in as a partner in that LLC. And what he needs to bring to the table is the cash that you would get out of the sale. So if that's 20 grand or 30 grand, have him bring 30 grand to the table in order to be a partner in that LLC, and then give him ownership in the LLC. Now he owns an interest in that property, and you didn't do anything that's going to trigger some sort of legal action from the state. On both of those scenarios, I will give you the disclaimer: consult your attorney, right? Let them know what your end goal is. Throw out some ideas that you've got, some of the things we talked about today, and make sure, and then he's going to say, hey, this is legal and this isn't, right? So let's go down the legal path.
I am actively looking for an attorney. I've talked to several. They're all over the place out here.
That is a key member of your team, of your executive team, is your attorney. And the first question I always ask, regardless of what professional I'm interviewing, is, have you worked with real estate investors before? Because if they haven't, you all of a sudden become their educator. And what I found is, I remember working with a title company earlier, maybe a couple of years into my real estate investing career. I did a transaction through a title company that was used to doing retail transactions. They hadn't done a whole lot with real estate investors before. They were used to just, the cute little family coming in and getting a mortgage, and that was their bread and butter. That's what they did all day long. And I was trying to do a subject to, and they said, we can't write this. We can't underwrite. This is illegal. You can't do this. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's illegal. I've done it all day. I've done it all year long, and I've got buddies who do it as their main source of income. It's not illegal. You know, I've had attorneys tell me it's not illegal, but the title company wouldn't do it because they said it was illegal. But really what it came down to was they were ignorant. They didn't know that that was something you could do and that it was legal because they'd never seen it or done it before. So you can bypass a lot of that headache. And I had two options at that point, right? Back to the story. I had two options at that point. I could either A, take the time to educate them, or B, just find someone who knew what they were doing. And I took option B. I wasn't going to say they weren't paying me, I was paying them, right? So I wasn't going to take my time to educate them. So that became a staple every time I interview a new professional, whether it's a title company, an attorney, an accountant. Have you worked with real estate investors before? And do you do it on a regular basis? If they say yes, we can move on with the interview. If they say no, have a nice day. Take care. Good luck to you. Right. So that's key in finding an attorney, is making sure that they're going to meet your needs and that they have experience doing what you want to do. Let's keep it rolling, guys. What's on your minds? Let's dive into some other strategies here. If you want to talk about wholesaling, that was the little training that we had at the beginning, or we could talk about whatever. Kathy's question was about some rental properties she's got. Anything you guys want to bring to the table? Let's chat.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Going back to your example there with wholesaling that house in a LLC, if you had done that in a trust, I assume that would have been a land trust. Would that be a less expensive option to do, set up the land trust versus the LLC?
It depends on who's setting it up for you. My attorney, Cody Backus, we've had him on the call. You can check out, in fact, you can check out the call he was on by going to the YouTube, our Flippin' Sexy Real Estate Education YouTube channel. We've got all of our recordings from past Ask Mitch Anything calls on there, so go check it out. But Cody is very experienced. In fact, his main clientele is real estate investors and specifically wholesalers. So he already had some packages set up, right? I mean, he created a product around the idea. He said, look, if you want to do the LLC route, I've got what I refer to as a disposable LLC. It's $200. Or you can do a disposable trust, and that's $200. From Cody's perspective, using Cody, it's the same, right? For me, it's all going to depend on your attorney. If they don't have that on the shelf ready to go, it's probably going to cost a little bit more. But you know what? One thing that I learned, and I talked to Cody about this, he's okay with it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be saying it online, right? But is I pay him to do it once, and then I just take that document and create a form out of it, and I just rotate out the addresses and the prices and stuff, the variable information. The rest of the legal stuff, if it's the exact same type of transaction over and over again, I can just use that stuff over and over again. Whereas, if there's a scenario that comes up, I may use that 99 out of 100 times. That 1 out of 100, maybe it's got some funky detail in it that makes it really weird to be able to use that same contract. So I'll have Cody just write up a new contract that specifically addresses those issues. That's the long answer. The short answer, Tony, is it comes down to your attorney, to who's writing that up for you. If they've already got that stuff available, both of them are going to be pretty cheap. And for me, it would have been the same price.
Okay, that makes sense. Appreciate that.
So let's see. Ivan says, I'm watching the courses, so I don't really have questions today, but I'm really excited about what I've seen and been learning so far. Does Cody work nationwide? Cody works in the Mountain West. I believe he works in Utah, Wyoming, Idaho. He lives in Arizona and works in Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, I believe. It doesn't need to be Cody. There's 1,000 Codys out there, right? You just got to find the Cody. So it can be, if you're on the East Coast, just find the guy. And in I believe it's in the fix and flip class, I've recorded an entire module, how to interview professionals. So that's contractors, accountants, attorneys, etc. I will, in fact, let me grab a link to that module real quick. That way you guys can check it out, because that seems to have been a recurring question today. So that was only to Juwan. Sorry, Juwan. I'm going to repost that to everybody. Here are our education classes. You guys can feel free to peruse those classes. So I got a private message from one of my students when I was representing another company a while back. I have, recently we've changed the structure of the way we're doing things. I've actually opened up all of my videos for people to view for free. Now, there's some options as far as coaching goes. If a lot of you have paid for your education, you guys, we stick to what we say we're going to do. If you paid for education and coaching with myself and with Coach Dan, we're going to stick with that, right? But what Dan and I have decided to do is, we've opened up our trainings for free on YouTube. However, if you still want coaching, we still provide those services, and those are paid services. So, if your coaching contract is expired and you want to keep going, reach out to us. Let's talk, because there's options. Dan and I are here to serve you guys. And if you feel like you need more than just those training modules and more than this call once a week, which is free, we're here to provide those services for you. So we're here to make that happen. Chandler Olson has a question. Is there a certain cash on cash return that you're looking for on rentals, or have you ever gotten an infinite return? If so, how did that work out? So that's a tough question to answer directly, because there's a low end threshold, right? I want as high of return as I can get, and infinite as high as you can get, right? If I have a rental property that I didn't pay any money for, then that's the best I can do on it. So that's what I'm looking for in every case. Now I'm going to share a video with you guys. This is actually one of our before and afters that we did. It's the most recent episode actually, and it goes right along with Chandler's question. This second link that I posted, this is a before and after video. The title of this video is "We Got 3 Rentals for $0." Now, very creative the way that we did this. We actually went in and bought a 4-plex. It was a 3-plex townhome style in the back and a single family home up front. And it was $215,000 down. We got creative. We got seller financing. So I believe the total purchase price was $650,000. So we put the $215,000 down, remodeled the front house, sold it off because it was on its own tax ID. We could just sell off just the single family house. We sold it for $260,000, which put profit in our pocket. And now we have this seller finance $0 out of pocket triplex that just cash flows every month. No money out of pocket. In fact, they put money in our pocket, right? So we got like a negative infinity return on it because we didn't put any money in and we got way more money out than, So being able to be creative and adding knowledge to your tool belt. This is why I say knowledge is the second most important currency. If I didn't have that knowledge, I would have looked at that deal and been like, there's nothing I can do with that, right? But because of the knowledge that I have and the knowledge that you guys have as we're sharing this information, you're able to go out and do these kinds of deals where you get paid to take on a rental property. I mean, that's the best way to do it, right? $0 out of pocket, made a chunk of change on the flip, and making cash flow every month. Best way to do it. So hopefully that answers your question, Chandler. There is another part to that, though. Is there a certain cash on cash return you're looking for? Yeah, I just try to approach infinity. I mean, I know that sounds silly, but that's really, I try to get it as close to infinity as possible. Another way you could do that, Chandler, a little more kind of straightforward way, still creative, but a little more straightforward, is seller financing with a small down payment, and you use other people's money and partner on the rental. So let's say, for example, I find a $200,000 single family house that would just, the numbers kill it on a rental property. They're willing to do seller financing, but they want 20 grand down. And I've deployed all my cash on other rentals. But you know what? I know that for a fact that Wade has 20 grand, and Wade and I are good friends. We talk multiple times a week, and he's like, hey, I've got 20 grand ready to go as soon as you find something, right? And I call Wade and I say, hey, you want to partner on a rental? You bring 20 grand to the table, I'll bring the deal, and we'll split the cash flow 50-50. And he says, yep, let's go do it. Now, that's actually happened, right, Wade? Where you and I have multiple times, I think, where we've gone out and done deals together that looked exactly like that. And the nice thing is Wade didn't have to do any of the work finding or analyzing or managing the deal. All he did was bring some cash. And I didn't have to bring any cash. All I brought was experience and knowledge and a system. And that makes a perfect marriage, a perfect partnership. And we go out and we make money. Now, also remember, Chandler, as we get into rental properties, I love rental properties. There's a reason why rental properties are my first priority, even though they don't return as much immediate cash as something like a flip does. And that is because rental properties return profit in 5 different ways. You can make money or better your wealth situation in 5 different ways with a rental property. We use the acronym IDEAL, IDEAL. Rental properties provide income in the form of cash flow, monthly income. They provide deductions. There's the D, deductions, tax deductions. There's no better tax shelter than a rental property. There's so many different ways that you can take advantage, tax advantages that are there for rental property owners. Equity, as we pay down the mortgage, we're opening up room from what we paid to it. Every month we make a mortgage payment that a part of that goes to principal and opens up equity in that property. So we're actually part of that payment, we're just putting in a savings account, basically, right? Our equity account, that when we sell the property, we'll be able to cash all of that back out, and me and Wade will split it at the end, right? So IDE is equity, A is appreciation. Now, every year, on average, right? I mean, maybe this year it's going to go like this, and next year it'll go like that and be down. But overall, if you look at it as a line, you zoom way out, 50, 100 years at a time, real estate appreciates on average 3 to 4% a year. So appreciation is something that Wade and I are going to get to share on that deal. And the last thing is leverage. We can leverage that property to buy more property, right? So we can turn one rental property into 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 rental properties if we're smart and educated about the way we do it. So IDEAL, rental real estate is the ideal investment. 5 ways we can make money on it.
I have another question. Have you ever set up an LLC or corporation or whatever and used that to purchase a home?
Yes. So I have an entity. I have an LLC. I used to have 3, and my accountant didn't like that very much. So we convinced the attorney to let us consolidate it into one entity, one LLC that is in charge of fixing and flipping. And so anytime we know it's going to be a fix and flip, we just write the offer in the name of the LLC. The LLC buys it. All my joint ventures and partnerships that I create in order to execute the transaction and raise funds is all done in the name of the LLC. So it's all handled in that entity.
So, well, yeah, but so all the money for the property, say the property is 200,000, you have to raise 200,000, put it into the corporation, and then buy it.
Yes.
So have you ever been able to use that corporation to purchase a property through a bank?
You mean purchase a property from a bank, like a REO,
right,
or get a mortgage?
For the mortgage.
I try to avoid mortgages whenever possible. I've only one time gotten a mortgage on a rental property in my name. And I've got credit partners who have then gotten mortgages in their name, and they were part of, we had a joint venture agreement, or they were partners in the LLC, or whatever the case might be, for rental properties. And I'm going to try to avoid ever getting a mortgage in my name, if I can, on a rental property. Because as we tie up our own resources, it limits the number of deals that we can do.
Well, an example of the one where you talked about Wade, he brings in 20,000, you bring, you're basically handling this whole thing and splitting everything, I guess 50-50. Where did the rest of the money come from to purchase the house?
Usually seller financing. So if we're buying a rental, knowing that it's going to be
okay.
I'll only do it if it's seller financing.
Yeah.
Now, there have been situations where I've had to turn what we thought was going to be a flip into a rental because something happened. That's happened a handful of times in my entire career. I'd say, less than 5% of the time. In those cases, that's when usually I'll bring in a credit partner. Now, there is nothing wrong, Kathy, with you using your credit to buy real estate. However, I would do it as a credit partner rather than trying to do it on your own properties that you're going to manage. I know that sounds weird. Like, why wouldn't you just make it easy on yourself and just use your own credit? Because then there's no partner to split it with. Let's go back to the analogy that I was using, the example I was using with me and Wade, right? So if Wade were to use, Wade's been an equity partner on a lot of deals. And if Wade were to use his own cash to go do a deal that he was going to manage himself, I wouldn't recommend that, because now he's got one deal. He used his own cash and he's using his own time. He's using a lot, all the currencies basically to do one deal. However, if Wade gives his cash to me and then goes and does his own deals where he's the manager and raises the money, and I'm doing deals with Wade's cash, now Wade has 2 deals. Does that make sense?
I got lost.
So if Wade's using all of his own resources to do one deal, if he's bringing his 20,000 cash to the table and he's getting a mortgage on it, and now Wade's got a rental property that he owns clear,
right.
He's only got one rental property. Okay. However, if Wade gives his cash to me and I go find the rental property, and let's say we use the previous owner's mortgage, we're using someone else's credit, right? Because if we do a subject to, it's still someone else's credit. And now Wade and I are partners on this deal that I'm managing. Wade's a partner over here, but he can also now go out and raise other people's money to do that, to do a deal on his own. So he's doing a deal on his own. There's a deal. And he's doing a deal with me. There's 2 deals. So that same 20,000 that he could have put on that first deal, he would only have 1 deal. He gave that to me and was a money partner, and then went and did his own deal using other people's money. Now he's got 2 deals.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just to come back to the core of the question, because I know I got off track there for just a second. I would avoid using your own credit to get a mortgage on a rental property that you're going to own and be in charge of. Try to use a credit partner, or even better, try to do a subject to where you're using the previous owner's mortgage, because it's going to keep your resources available to lend out on deals that you don't have to do any work on. And then we're spreading out the currencies. We're not putting all of our eggs in one basket. How does a mortgage limit what you can do? Ivan, did that explanation, I think you typed that as I was kind of diving deeper into that explanation. Did that answer your question? Okay, good. I just wanted to know what you would do in my case. Not sure to just rent my own property or get another one or just do a seller financing. There's a lot of options, my friend. And maybe this, where it's your personal property, maybe let's talk offline about it. If there's details you don't want to share, if you don't mind sharing those details, let's have you come off mute and explain it a little bit when you get a chance. I know you said you're at work, so it's up to you. We can talk offline or we can talk online, but either way, I need more details from you to be able to give you kind of an idea of what I'd be able to do. With rentals, do you combine a few properties into an LLC entity, or do you use an LLC/entity for each property purchase? This is a really good question. And you specified, Chandler, with rentals. So in most states, and Utah is one of those states, you've got a classification of entity, an LLC, which we're all familiar with. But inside of that LLC classification, there's a subclassification called a serialized LLC or a serial LLC, not like breakfast cereal, right? SERIAL, meaning many of them, right? The nice thing is I only have to keep books with my serial LLC. I've got a holdings company that is a serial LLC. I get the advantage of only having to keep books on one entity and only having to report taxes on one entity. However, I get the legal protection as if there was a different entity for each property. So with this serialized LLC, I can set up a sub LLC for each one of them. So inside of that holdings company, I just call Cody up, my attorney, and I'm like, hey, we just bought another one using Man Holdings. Let's move that into a sub LLC. And he does all the paperwork and move it into a sub LLC, and it's got its own protection. It's protected from all the other properties inside that holdings company. So kind of awesome. That is the best way that I've found to do it. However, everybody's situation is different. I mean, I've seen people own rentals in a C Corp before. I have no idea why you want to do that. I've seen people do it. So I'm sure they've got their reasons. So you're going to want to talk to your attorney. They're going to understand your situation way better than I'm going to be able to. That's just the way that I do it. Serial LLC. Whose name does it go in? And how do you do that? And also looking for a private money lender, how would they be involved? I know that's a broad question. They can be the money person or the equity partner. So money person, equity partner, that's an interchangeable term. That's the same thing. For example, I think every deal that Wade and I have done together, Wade has been, and sorry, I keep picking on you, Wade, but you're a perfect example and your picture's right next to mine. So at least from my perspective, so you get picked on today. Wade's someone that I partnered up with on a lot of deals. We've got a really good track record together. And in every case, he's been the equity partner, which means he's retired and playing golf and hunting and playing racquetball while I'm out working my butt off, right? And that's nice. That's a great benefit to being an equity partner. I'm the one out finding the deal and making sure the contractors are doing what they're supposed to and yelling at them when they don't. And, Wade doesn't have to worry about any of that stuff. We just, he calls me or I call him every time there's an update. He says, cool, catch you tomorrow, whatever. Being an equity partner is great in that it takes very little time. You put some money into a deal. When the deal's done, make sure it's with someone you trust, right? When the deal's done, you get your money back plus your profit, right? And you just keep doing that, keep turning it. With that, the way that normally we do it is, and there's a couple options here. You can do it through a joint venture agreement. So it's my entity that we do it in because I'm managing it day to day. That's just out of convenience so that I can sign all the paperwork and do all that stuff. So it's my entity that we hold it in, but Wade and I have a joint venture agreement between us. So it's basically an operating agreement without the LLC, EIN number. It's a joint venture agreement that Cody wrote up that says that here's what Wade gets, here's what he puts in. Here's what Mitch gets, here's what he puts in, right? It just outlines everything. We will sign it, and then the title company attaches that with a notice of interest on title. So basically, Wade has every bit of protection that a bank does in that he's protected, and all my equity partners are protected in this way, that they're protected on title just like a bank would be. So they could come in and be able to take legal action if anything ever went wrong, and they could essentially take over ownership of the property if I'm being neglectful or if I die or if I disappear or whatever the case might be. So he's protected in that way. but then I'm able to transact everything, sign all the documents, etc., because it's in my entity. When we sell it, the title company makes sure that he gets his money back plus the profit that was promised to him. So pretty sweet and easy, but that's how we structure it. Yeah. So private money lender, Scott, just wrapping up your question here. Private money lender, money person, and equity partner, they're all the same thing. So when we use those terms, they're interchangeable. The appropriate term, though, is equity partner.
I have another question. When you were talking about the corporations, let's see, corporation for your rentals with sub corporations or sub classifications.
Yeah.
Is that considered what they call a shell corporation?
No. So serialized LLC is its own compartmentalized thing. A shell corporation usually is an entity that's set up to hide something, whether it's legal or illegal. It's set up to usually protect the identities of the people that are the actual owners of that corporation. So it usually doesn't own inventory. It doesn't own this or that. It's just set up simply to protect the identities of the people involved. So sometimes that's done legally, sometimes that's done for illegal activities, but that's what a shell corporation is.
And then as far as the sub corporations, like let's say we have a property and somebody does, I don't know, something, or there was some kind of where they considered it the fault of the owner. They have an accident, something, I don't know. Like maybe the walkway had a big drop in it, the ground lifted and they fell and tripped and broke their teeth and they filed against the property. Apparently, maybe they died, something terrible, and they want to sue the owner. So if this property is in one of those sub corporations, would it not affect all the different little corporations or the mother corporation or not?
That's the beautiful part of it. As long as it's done right, your LLC protection's in place. And the law treats it, at least case law in Utah, treats it as if it's its own entity, even though from a tax and a books perspective, it is only really one. But from an asset protection perspective, they're all individual entities, individual LLCs. And that is the beautiful thing about a serialized LLC. It's the cost, the operating cost of having one entity while getting the legal protection of having several. And they're great for things like holding companies for rental property. Now, here's something to understand about LLC, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into this. As we're talking about entity structuring, it's important to understand, imagine, okay, so for those of you who know me well, I'm a huge science fiction nerd, right? Like Star Trek is my favorite thing in the whole world. I'm a Star Wars geek. I'm gonna get a little nerdy on us on the call here. Imagine a force field. So an LLC, it creates a force field that only works in one direction. So our force field is only going to stop things coming at us this way. Or a better example would be our force field is only going to stop things coming at us this way, but it's not going to stop things coming this way, going down, okay? So if you're imagining your corporate structure and you're at the top, right? And then you've got an S Corp that's your management company and it owns several LLCs, including your holdings company. That's what I mean. So if you do something stupid, if you go out drinking one night and get in a car and you hit a school bus full of kids, right? Heaven forbid. That's not gonna, your companies are not gonna be protected from that. An LLC does not protect from your stupidity, right? The force field only goes one way. So when you're sued personally, all of that stuff below is at risk because you did something dumb. But however, if you've got an LLC that owns a rental property and someone trips and falls at that rental property and wants to sue you, they can't get past that force field, that one directional force field. It can't go up. So all they're able to sue is what's inside of that entity. So they can sue and potentially, if the judge finds you at fault, they can sue and potentially get that one property, but they're not going to get your whole portfolio. They're not going to get your personal residence. They're not going to get your cars. They're not going to get your retirement plans, right? They're just going to get whatever's in that one entity. And that serialized LLC creates that shield around each and every property with only having to manage one entity from a financial perspective. How do we get the shield to go the other way, right? What is there shields that go the other way? Yeah, there are. They're called trusts. This is why if you dig deep into asset protection, this is why you should not personally be owning your entities. You should be, your trust should own all your entities, because your trust is the shield between, your stupid self and all your businesses, right? So if you go out and do something dumb and you get sued, they can't get into what's in the trust because the shield, the force field on the trust goes the other direction. You've got now you're up here, and then your trust, and then your S corp. Anything you do that's dumb can't get through that trust.
So the S corp has LLCs underneath it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I'm structured. I've seen people structure all sorts of ways, but basically my structure looks like spokes on a wheel, right? The hub is my S corp in the middle, and then I've got myself as a spoke, right? And my trust. So I guess my trust is the spoke, and I'm above that. And then I've got my holdings company, and I've got my intellectual property company that owns the rights to my book, and I've got my rentals and my flip company, and they're like spokes on a wheel, but they're all owned by my S corp, which is owned by my trust. Now, that's not to say that that structure works for everybody. That's just me, right? And that was what I learned, and that's what I was suggested. That was the structure that was suggested to me by my attorney. I've seen a lot of people set things up that way. You're going to be best off finding an attorney, letting them know what you currently have asset-wise and money-wise, and then letting them know what your goals are, and they're going to recommend a structure that fits what you want to do. I am a long-winded person. It probably seems like I'm extra long-winded, but I try to give a little bit more. You know, you ask a question, I try to go just a little bit deeper, just so these questions benefit everybody, because you might be facing the same question with a few different details. And I find that if we just go a little bit deeper on each one of these questions, it tends to apply to more people. So that's why I do that. I've got some more questions popping up here. Omar, favorite way to find a deal? And 1, a scenario of an ideal converted lead. 2, common objections and how you go about them. So favorite way to find a deal is when other people find it for me. I'm half joking and also serious at the same time. So my personal favorite way to find a deal is when other people find it for me. And the reason for that is because it frees up my time, because that is, for me, my strong suit is not finding deals. However, Omar, your strong suit might be finding deals. So, now with that said, if I were someone whose strong suit would be to find deals, my favorite way to find deals is people who are in pre-foreclosure. I like getting the lists, and I don't like calling the lists, because it's really easy for people to be rude and hang up and not get anything done over the phone. I like actually going to the properties, and actually Maylee, my wife, is the person who taught me this. Get the NOD list, identify the property owner, do your skip tracing, understand everything you possibly can about it, and then drive to the neighborhood where the property is. Identify the property, knock the entire rest of the neighborhood, save the property for last. Find out as much as you can about that particular homeowner and their situation, and generate leads while you're on their doorsteps. Ask them if they're selling their house anytime soon, if they'd like a cash offer. Ask them if they know anybody that's selling their house soon, or anybody that's in a bad financial situation that needs to be bailed out, because we're real estate investors and that's what we do, right? So now you're knocking the entire neighborhood, and by the time you get to that house, I think Maylee calls it the cauliflower effect, right? By the time you've knocked the entire neighborhood, and by the time you get to that one house, you've got tons of information on it, and you're able to speak directly to the problems that those people are having based on the knowledge you've gained from the neighbors. Notice of default, people in pre-foreclosure, going to their house, having conversations with them after I talk to the neighbors. That's my favorite way. And the reason it's my favorite way is because I found it to be the most efficient way. 1A, scenario of an ideal converted lead. Explain to me what you mean there.
I guess if you're getting your deals from other people, my question was just more like, how do I know I'm on the right path with leads and it's being converted properly? I don't know that. Like, it's kind of foggy.
Yeah, I think by the time I get a lead, usually I want to for sure know that the owner understands that investors are coming in and buying their property and they're still interested.
Okay.
I don't want to spend my time, especially if I'm going to pay somebody else a finder's fee. I don't want to show up at a doorstep and they're like, who the hell are you? Right. And I have to explain to them, like, I didn't say that I wanted to do that. That's the worst thing to happen, because I just wasted my day. Right. Or I wasted an hour of my day on one lead. I want them to be very educated on what's going to happen next and be committed. After they're educated on the process, I want them to still be committed and say, yes, I'm ready. Send in the big guns. Let's make this happen. Then I go in and close it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess it was a loaded question, because I already see a bunch of other questions, popping up.
And then I think the second part is even more loaded. Common and how to go about them. Really, Omar, it comes down to knowing the process. You need to know the processes beyond what you do. For example, I teach on finding activities all the time. It's my least favorite thing to do in real estate, to actually be the one to go out and find the deal. that's personal. That doesn't mean that it needs to be everybody else's least favorite thing. I know lots of people that raising money is their least favorite thing. That's my favorite thing. That's what gets me all excited and giddy, is raising money and putting a deal together. So, it's just finding those personalities that fit together. However, it's really good for you, Omar, if you're the lead finding guy, it's really good for you to have at least a basic knowledge of what it takes to raise money and what it takes to do a fix and flip and what it takes to write a contract, because then you're going to have that ability. And I think the best class for you in this case, Omar, is the off-market deals on tap class. Now, I know you're with Gavin and Rick, right?
I'm with Eloy.
Oh, cool.
And I'm
yeah, Eloy's a stud, man.
Trying to generate leads with working with Jared as well. Bretchley.
Oh, cool.
Jared Bretchley.
Yeah, he's a stud.
Yeah.
He's been on the call before too, sharing his app with us. Yeah, so both awesome guys, both students of mine. Yeah, so it's important to share or to have a knowledge of what's going on beyond your scope of responsibility, because that's going to help you prepare that prospect for the next
in every situation.
Yeah, that you're not even going to be involved in, right? So
okay.
With that, part two of your question, objections will come up and they'll say, and they'll be different every time. Hey, if you're going to take over my mortgage, what happens in 5 years when my credit's better, right? You're saying that the reason that I should give my house to you instead of the bank is because you're going to stop the foreclosure from happening and my credit's going to get better a lot faster. Okay, what happens when my credit's better? And
so
that type of thing.
So I guess I'm getting more pinpointed on my question as we're talking.
Okay.
I feel like when I do try to be more well-rounded on everything, I'm not on my toes when I'm actually communicating with the seller. And I don't want to get into the motion of just learning and trying to learn and trying to find out objections. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I just kind of lost myself in train of thought.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is I've got a saying that I always say, and it's ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice.
Yeah,
right?
Like I don't know anything and I can't absorb all of it, and I can't really say anything when I'm in the situation at that moment and that time. You know what I mean?
Part of that, Omar, comes from just doing it. You're gonna look like an idiot for a while. That's okay. You're gonna go out and knock on a door and they're gonna be like, yeah, I'm interested. And then you're gonna screw it up because you don't know what you're doing. But that's not a failure. That's you learning. Then you're like, okay, what was their question? Well, they asked about this. Okay, we'll go learn about that. Because that question will probably come up again. And you're only going to have to burn through 20 or 30 leads before, okay, I got this down, right? I'm hearing the same question, the same 20 questions from a million different people. I know the answer to the 20 questions, so lay 'em on me. I'm ready. Going and taking action is the right thing to do. You're doing it right. Just learn.
Okay.
Just learn from the ones that don't go so well, right?
Yeah.
And that's just the part of the process you're in. Now you'll be in a totally different situation. You'll be way more educated, way more experienced. You'll have done a couple of things, and you're going to be able to work to get there.
Okay, that completely answered my question. All right, thank you, Mitch.
Absolutely.
Omar, I have a little insight for you as well. I'm friends with Jared. And I know that Jared records himself on video as well as audio only when video is not available. He records himself while he's making these phone calls to find his wholesale deals. And then he rewatches those and uses that for his own feedback. And then he can also share that with people who want to become better at making these phone calls and become better at finding wholesale deals so we can add value to others.
Yeah, I've watched like all of his videos, and it's weird when it comes down to the moment of being in that interaction with the seller. Like, I'm 21. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I don't understand the world really. Like, I don't really understand their situation. So it's like I just kind of get lost in the sauce. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can certainly understand. I'm 32 right now. I remember when I was 21. It's hard to relate to people who have more experience.
Yeah, so I just get completely lost.
Omar, 21, when it comes to real estate investing, it doesn't matter if you're 21 or you're 81. If you're in your first year of real estate investing, there's a learning curve and you just have to go through it. As long as you're out taking action, you'll get through the learning curve. You will. But as soon as you stop taking action, you push the pause button on that learning curve and you're not learning anymore, right? You're just delaying the learning curve. So as long as you're out taking action, you will get through that learning curve, regardless of your age. So it doesn't have a ton to do with it. What it has more to do with is you're early on in your investing.
Yeah, understandable. Now I just know now to be okay with looking stupid.
Yeah, I'm fine with it because you learned something. I always like to say we have the wrong definition of failure in our society. People think that if you set out for a certain, if you set out and start taking action to get a certain goal and you get a different result, that you failed. That's not true. The only time you fail is when you stop taking action, when you don't set out at all. If you set out and you get the result you were looking for, you win. You made money probably, right? Because that's what most of us are shooting for. But you know what? If you set out and you take action and you don't get the result you were looking for, you get a different result, you learned, right? So you either win or you learn. Taking action both ways, because money is the least important currency and knowledge is the second most important currency. So either way, you're going to walk away better for it as long as you take action. The only time you fail is when you stop taking action. You're winning and you're learning. I love it.
Cool.
And
All right,
I don't think you're winning, Omar. I wish I was 21 when I started investing in real estate. Something that I admire about you is that you are 21 and doing this.
That's right.
I have a high amount of time currency, so I don't want to waste it.
Actually, I was going to say something to Omar. When I was becoming a real estate agent years ago, there was a couple of young girls in there, and I never forgot what the teacher said to them, because they had the same issue. Well, is it because we're so young? And he said, honey, all you got to do is fake it till you make it. And I never forgot that. And every time I walked into a house, before I walked into the house, I looked in the mirror of my car and I said, you're great. You're going to get this deal. You're going to go in there and be confident. And that's what I did. And it works.
Yep, absolutely. And I love that saying, fake it till you make it. That's how I got through my learning curve, right? I went out and acted as if. What do you want to be? I want to be a real estate investor. Too many people have, I heard the best word to describe this thing. I can't think of what it is, but it's that shame of feeling like you can't call yourself a real estate investor because you haven't done a deal yet, right? You've got that shame, like I'm not perfect at what I'm preaching, so I can't call myself that thing. Get rid of that. That's going to hold you back so far. If you can't go out and proudly stand on someone's doorstep and be like, I'm a real estate investor, and confidently say that and talk confidently with them, then you're never going to get past that, because they're going to see right through the lack of confidence. But if you can go out and be like, hey, I'm a real estate investor, even if you've only been doing it a day, they're going to be like, oh, he's a real estate investor. Okay, then. Well, better listen to what this guy has to say, right? So I love that fake it till you make it. Act as if you have done 1 million deals, because eventually you will have. So Ivan came out with a question here. How do you handle your personal assets? Do you put everything in corporations and trusts? A descendant of John D. Rockefeller is famous for having said the following quote: own nothing, control everything. You want to own nothing in your personal, because again, we go back to that example of, you do something stupid and you get sued and you're at fault. Now all of your assets, all of your companies, if you own them personally, all of those things are up for grabs in that lawsuit, right? Because that shield only goes one direction. So if all my stuff, whether it's my assets or my liabilities, if all my stuff is in the entities, the trusts and the LLCs and the S Corps and the C Corps corporations, and I own nothing, but I am the controller of all of those entities, there you go. I get to enjoy the stuff and none of it's a liability. One of my favorite concepts that I refer to often is when knowledge increases, behavior changes. Isn't it interesting how we were all taught the exact opposite of what we're supposed to be doing as wealthy individuals? Oh yeah, go out and buy a car. Or, just use your social security number and they'll pull your credit and then you own it, right? And go out and get rental properties. Just use your social security number and then you own it. We were taught the wrong ways to do things in public education, right? We're supposed to buy all this stuff in our personal name because we own it, right? And that's so important that we own it in our name. Well, that's exactly the wrong way to do it, because then it all becomes a liability from a legal standpoint. Whereas if you own corporations and those corporations own everything and they're structured correctly so that no matter how dumb you are, and trust me, I've done some really dumb stuff. I'm lucky. I'm lucky I haven't gotten in more trouble because of how dumb I am. And we're all dumb. We all do stupid things, right? None of us are stupid proof. We're all going to go out and do a stupid thing at some point in our lives again and mess it up. We just want to make sure that we've structured correctly now so that when that thing happens, and let's be honest, look back at all the stupid things you've done in your life. Did you mean to be stupid? Probably not, right? You didn't know that it was going to create the crap storm that followed that action, whatever it was. But we all do stupid things, not knowing the outcome. Just make sure, and you will do them again. Just make sure that you're structured the right way from the beginning. When knowledge increases, behavior changes. The more you know, the more you're going to act differently than you used to. The more you learn about asset protection, about real estate investing, about raising money, about wealth management, the more you learn, the more the way you operate your life is going to change, because it's totally different from the way they taught us.
I've got a question.
Tony, what's up, my man?
When doing subject to deals, so I'm still kind of learning about that, but what assurance does that give to the seller that in case something happens, you're not able to keep up with his payments?
Mm-hmm.
Is there something in there that gives him assurance that he can take the house back, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to bounce back because it has to do with this. Omar, I'm going to bounce back to your question, common objections and how you go about them. This is one of the objections that I get often when I'm negotiating a seller finance deal, right? When I'm trying to buy a house using the previous owner's mortgage. Usually that only works when they need to be bailed out. If they're in good standing and they've got equity in their house, you might as well not bring it up to them. They don't care, right? But people who this is going to actually help them and bail them out and protect their credit, one of the common questions that comes up is exactly what Tony just asked. So what happens if you stop making my payments? Well, there's a couple of answers to that. Number one, Tony, they're going to go back to the exact same situation they're in now. So worst case scenario, I don't make your payments. You go back into foreclosure. Guess what? That's where you're at right now as we're talking. So you're not going to be any worse off. You're just going to be in the same situation. However, I am going to add one little document that's going to just give you an extra little boost that will set you just a little bit further ahead if that does happen. I usually add in a bunch of assurances. Look, I'm going to bring 20 grand to the table. I'm going to bring, I'm going to make the payments every single month. I'm going to put some money into fixing this place up. I'm going to sink all in all over the next 3-4 years. I'm going to sink probably 50, 60 grand into this thing. You think I'm going to walk away from 60 grand by not making a $900 payment one month? No, of course not. Right. But as an extra assurance, I will write a document into the contract called a deed in lieu of foreclosure. I'm going to put that into the chat here so you guys can see exactly. Deed in LIEU of foreclosure. That is a simple document, a simple addition to the contract that says if I miss X amount of payments, 2 payments, 1 payment, 3 payments, if I miss 3 consecutive payments, you get the title back without having to go through the foreclosure process. Now, why is that a benefit? Well, the foreclosure process is a law that's set in place to protect borrowers from the big bad banks. The government understood at some point that the banks have a lot more money and a lot more power than your average homeowner, right? So they put some protections in place for the borrower to make sure that the bank wasn't just going to go out and foreclose whenever they felt like it. So the foreclosure process is a court process with a judge involved to make sure that there really is a good reason for the bank foreclosing, and then the bank can bring evidence to the table and say, well, they stopped paying, they're in breach of contract, they haven't paid us in a year, and the judge can say, well, you said you would, you didn't, property's theirs, right? So that's the foreclosure process. It's just kind of it protects the buyer, or protects the borrower. Deed in lieu of foreclosure. So if we think about a seller finance note where we're the buyer and the seller, we're going to use their mortgage. Well, technically that makes the seller also the lender, and it makes me, the buyer, also the borrower. The foreclosure laws protect me as the borrower, and he's the dude at risk because I'm using his credit to finance this house that I only brought 20 grand down on, right? So a deed in lieu of foreclosure basically waives my rights as the borrower to the foreclosure process and gives specific instructions to the title company. If they can show evidence to the title company that I missed more than 3 payments in a row, then we can activate this deed in lieu of foreclosure, and you can just transfer the title right back into their name. So I'm going to waive my foreclosure rights. Usually that will get over all those objections, all the things I just explained. So the additional assurances of, dude, I'm bringing money to the table. I'm not going to miss a $900 payment and walk away from 60 grand. Right? Because if I did that, you would get all that stuff. You get all the improvements, you get the tenants, you can keep the down payment, you get to keep all the equity I built for you. I'm not going to do that. But here's that extra little motivation in the deed of lieu of foreclosure. Yeah, it's one of those things that, like I said, I'm not going to do it. I mean, I guess it is a nuclear option for me, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if I'm stuck on a property and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this thing. Luckily, it's not my credit. So just about here, take it back. I don't know, there's always that nuclear option with seller finance notes. However, when are you going to use that, right? More often than not, I'm going to try to protect the money that I've already invested in that property. I'm not going to miss a payment. So the deed in lieu of foreclosure is really just a comfort blanket that I use to pacify the sellers. Now, it's a legit document. It's not a farce, but it is, because I'm not going to default on it, it's a comfort blanket. So hopefully that helps there. So we are half past the hour. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the call here, guys. Thank you so much for attending today. I really appreciate your engagement today. These calls always go so much better, and they're so much more interesting, I think, for everybody, when we have a higher level of engagement. And that was certainly true today. As usual, we are here to help you guys with whatever you need throughout the week. So if you need any help, be sure to reach out to me. You can reach out to Coach Dan as well. We're here to serve you guys. Otherwise, I will plan on seeing you next week. Make sure you stay safe, stay healthy, stay out of trouble, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks, guys. Take care.